the best faction. I'm War Boss Chuck.
And I'm the old War Boss.
And I'm Seth the Mad Dog.
And we're here to tell you about Orks in 9th edition. But first out, I just want to start out with a quick shout out to Richard, keeping it alive. You've been winning tournaments basically constantly over the last couple of weekends. Why don't you tell us what you've been doing?
So we're pretty lucky here in Utah. We don't have a complete lockdown. The tournaments they're running are very COVID appropriate. We have large spaces between all the tables and masks and hand sanitizer, but we're lucky that we can play. And so we had one tournament the weekend that we had a GT the weekend that 9th dropped. So I won the last tournament of 8. It was actually called Goodbye to 8. And then we had one this past weekend that was our first 9th edition tournament, and the Orks won that one too. So
all right, bringing it home with the boys.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Seth, you've not been going to events very much, but I've been watching a lot of your content. You want to tell us about Dangly Boys before we get started?
Yeah, so I do the Dangly Boys podcast. We're part of the Rogue Trader Network with some other podcasts you may have heard of, the High Lords of Terra, Mob Rules, and NZ40 Cabal. They get us on that one. That's the New Zealand guys. But we also have a YouTube channel, and if you ever watch it, mostly it's been myself and one of our other members, Shelby, because we live in the same town and we're both isolated. So we still been able to put out some content. So I've been working on doing a bunch of Orc content for 9th.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've been watching it. It's just Seth with some buggies versus what Shelby's trying this week.
Yes. Seth, did you hear how they described your podcast on Chapter Tactics this morning?
I believe that the term was "it's all right."
I liked how they said it's a little cleaner than Veteran Gamer Re-Enlisted.
Hey, and I'll take it.
At least you're winning at something.
Exactly. We aim for that rung just above Veteran Gamers. So success.
It's the place to be.
That's great.
I still find it funny that I'm on a network with Michael Tempe. And I'm just like, what? When they were like, hey, the High Lords went to join, I was like, are you sure they know who we are?
Did they listen to our content?
Yeah, I was like, okay. So anyway, it's a good time. We all have fun.
Yeah. So I was talking about putting this faction-focused sort of video together about Orks, and I started thinking about, really, Orks come down to two things. We got vehicles, and we got boys. And for me, when it comes down to asking about, hey, what do a bunch of vehicles look like, or what does a bunch of boys look like, you're the two guys I go to. I feel like you represent the two polar edges of those two things. So what I want to come on here and say, I like them both, but I'm not sure which one's best.
Okay. We doing this.
Yeah, we are. So, I mean, I've won more events with 120 boys than I have with a bunch of trucks and junk. But I will admit that I got into this faction for a bunch of trucks and junk. So I'm sort of in Rich's camp because that's where my success has been. But my heart is over there with Seth. So first, right. Seth, if you want to tell me why I should be jumping that line into a happier world, I'd love to hear it.
First off, it's a happier world. There's a lot less things to move. Honestly, that's what drove. So the whole thing that got me into vehicles was going to ATC last year, and Orc vehicles are surprisingly durable when you put the right buffs on them. Emphasis on surprisingly, and that's a lot of how the list works. Going with Death Skulls to get them the 6+ invuln, or when you can get the KFF on them, the 5+ invuln. Applies a significant amount of damage reduction. And then the other end of it is because they're so cheap, you can just run a ton of them. It is not unusual for me to write a list with 15 to 20 vehicles in it. And yeah, you can call that spam, but at the end of the day, if you're diluting out a very high power shot, because most armies don't have high volumes of high strength shots, that durability from 6+ invuln or 5+ invuln or with trucks ramshackle, it really starts to mess with how your opponent splits their fire, and then they start to make mistakes The common one I go back to is a truck with a 5+ invuln takes a full Crusader Knight to kill. No single one gun from that Crusader can kill that truck on average dice. So they have to put both guns into it to actually take the truck out. And you're talking about a almost 450, 500 point Knight putting both of its main guns into a 70 point truck now to try to kill it. And that is not
the boys get out at that point.
Exactly.
And
it's not good return on
still a
investment.
presence here.
Them killing it might be exactly what you wanted.
Exactly. So it's every orc vehicle you look at, if you look at it in a bubble, it is not good. But when you have 15 to 20 of them, it starts to add up. I like to think of it as a slot machine. Eventually, one of these things is going to come up, triple diamonds, and then I'm going to get something good going.
Well, I feel like, to me, that's, and I have felt this way since second edition, they've stayed very strong with that. That's how orcs are, is you're often bringing a whole lot of things that can spike, and then just rolling a bunch of dice hoping to get a spike out of your turn, which is sort of average. That on odds, you'll get something will spike and will destroy something that'll be impressive. So you don't have as much control over necessarily what gets removed out of your opponent's army. But you do also have these chances where, like, you might just get lucky. They'll pull your ass out of a game every once in a while because they're like, hey, everybody's going to spike all at once. By the way, we blew everything up. I recently played a game, it was last weekend, with buggies. It was kind of my first time playing with them since, I don't know, 6th.
Yeah.
And I found that was definitely true. I overcommitted. I threw too many things in at once, so they were able to, get shooting and close combat on me, which I didn't need to allow. They could have just focused them into shooting. But I found what you were saying about the trucks to be very true. Even just the ramshackle roll, Colin was doing the math in his head, and he's like, okay, this will kill it off, and he shoots that in there, and I'm like, oh, I got a 6. Now you got to figure out something else, right? Like, I just got that little bit of lucky, and now your whole plan needs to get readjusted, and that happening like 2 or 3 times in a turn makes a big difference on what your opponent's turnaround actually looks like and their plan coming apart.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, I think the buggy release we got last year is definitely the big thing that pushes this forward. I think the answer to my question is obvious, but which one do you like best?
Well, yeah, if the trucks are your objective and your holding power, the buggies are your killing power. Hands down, and I spent way too much time doing all the math on all the buggies to figure out what targets they should go after. Hands down, the most effective all-arounder is the Megatrack. For 110 points, you get a platform that has 12 strength 5 shots. It has a single strength 8 missile that you can fire every turn, and a 2d3 blast missile, basically. Strength 8 -2, 3 damage. So it has weapons for elite infantry like aggressors or vehicles, as well as light infantry. Combo that with, it also has a pretty decent combat profile at 4 attacks with basically a power fist, strength 8 -2 d3 damage. And then when Saga of the Beast came out, they threw that 1 extra level on it, which was a custom job, which basically think of it as a relic for a vehicle if you're not familiar with orcs, that you can put on 1 unit of 3 and they deploy as 3 and then act as 3 separate after that, but each of them gets to fight twice. So you're putting out basically 8 power fist attacks, and it does some mortal wounds when it charges occasionally, but it's basically a model that can fight in all phases. It moves pretty decently at a 10-inch movement, and it's not the easiest thing to kill. It's T6 with 9 wounds and a 4-up save. You throw Death Skulls on it because I like to have rerolls and invulns. Now it's got a 6-up invuln. So it's a pretty good all-around platform. I personally just run the 3, but I've seen lists with 6 and 9 in it. And I honestly think even without the double attack custom job, it's still a very good platform.
I actually think because the game is oscillated back and forth, but they've stayed very steady with being able to shoot at different units with a unit. And as long as you can shoot the big shooters at the target they want and the rockets at the target they want, I think that is probably, unless they point it out or something, it's going to continue to be sort of your mainstay. My intent is to grow my collection to having 9 of them at some point, just because I think they're worth it, right?
They are,
and because orcs.
Yeah.
And And Chuck, you just started painting these models. They are fantastic looking.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, Chuck, gorgeous. Holy cow!
They are. I love those models. Like I hated myself because I painted them all in like 12 sub-assemblies, but they were amazing when I put them together.
Oh man, yeah. I don't do sub-assemblies. I still did a few.
I can't stop
like,
myself now from doing sub-assemblies. It's like a sickness.
Yeah. The time between when I usually assemble the model and when I finally actually finish painting it is so long, and I want to play with it. So I almost never actually do that.
Yeah.
So what else do we have in the world of mechanized orcs?
Buggies. So generally speaking, all the buggies took about a 10 to 12% increase in their points, which the average was about 20 for orcs. So they all actually got bumped up, but they ended up staying less than the average. There's three buggies that are worth talking about, and then two that I just love. So the next one that I would say is probably your best option after Megatrax is the Shock Jump Dragsta. It is a very versatile, ultra-mobile unit. So it's got a 14-inch movement just out of the box stock. Its special ability is when it advances, you roll the dice on a 4+. It can just deep strike anywhere on the table 9 inches away. And they upped it again in Saga of the Beast by giving it the custom job of Gyroscopic Whirligig, where it just automatically advances when you want it to and takes the teleport. Mm-hmm. So you have 3 vehicles that literally can be anywhere on the table 9 inches away from the enemy, turn 1.
Seth, before you leave that, I want to ask if I'm correct on a strategy. Mm-hmm. When does engage on all fronts score?
End of your turn.
End of your turn.
Not end of movement.
No, end of your turn.
Okay. Because I was thinking you could jump in, score that, and then jump out. That would be awesome.
Because there is also a strat they put in Saga of the Beast where after one of these shoots, it can then move, advance, and teleport out again. Yeah. So you can literally hop in, jump, shoot, jump anywhere on the board. I have literally.
Great. I love it.
I mean, the game we played, Shelby and I played a game off camera, and literally between that and to jump and some trucks, turn 1, I was on all 5 objectives at the top of 1. And just said, these are all mine. You have to blow me off all the objectives now. And it's
the game I was talking about from this weekend, I, not with the structure, but with a Deathcopter, did the move and then the move again after you've shot. Yeah. And snuck in on one of Colin's main objectives. So turn 2, he started with 1 objective, and it was a hold 2. So he's like, I'll start with 0 in the primary. It put an impressive amount of pressure on him to perform in the rest of the turns for the primary.
So here's
stuff like that. It's pretty good.
Fun part with shock jumps. They are a orc vehicle with ballistic scale 3.
Yeah.
For their main gun, which is basically a las cannon-ish. It's 24-inch range, assault 2, strength 8, -3, d6 damage. If it rolls a 1 to hit, it does a mortal wound. Woo! Who cares about hurting yourself? You're an orc. You don't care about that. But if you roll a 6 to wound, it does a mortal wound to the enemy. This is really good, particularly in 9th. It also has a rocket. You're almost never going to hit with it because you're always advancing to get that teleport. So it's always hitting on 6s. So it's not super exciting. But the shock rifle is great at killing those characters that got positioned wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what the Shock Jump Dragster, I think, does really well, is because it can just teleport. If your opponent left you an angle where they're like, okay, I put my blocking unit in front of my character, but there's a gap behind him, you can just pop in and say, hey, you know that Farseer back there? He's going to catch 2 las cannons to the face. And if you spike with some Daka-Dakas and some rerolls from Death Skulls, it's not uncommon for me to have 3 hits out of that gun.
Well, then you can spend a CP and teleport out. Yeah. So even if you're putting yourself in a bad spot, you can leave when you're done.
Exactly. So you can take that risk and jump in and say, I'm going to make you have to screen your backfield constantly because otherwise this dude's just going to show up and shoot lasers at you and then disappear. Yep. It has a combat profile. I've run it into other vehicles and stuff just to annoy them and say, hey, look, here I am. You know, you have to shoot me. It's not a great combat profile, but that's kind of its main draw is it's just hyper mobile. You can use it to move block, particularly in 9th, where there just seems to be a very high density of terrain on tables. It's really easy just to kind of drop them sideways in an alley and just say, cool, come deal with this 100-point vehicle while the rest of my army goes where it wants.
Yeah, they make you feel comfortable with engage on all fronts. I think orcs are one of the few armies that can just be like, no, I'm going to get all 15. This is just a thing I do. It's definitely true. So that's a pretty big part of the mech world. Richard, you're starting to pull me over there. What can you say about boys? I mean, there's all these blast templates. There's like our coherency's all screwed up. It sounds like the Horde's ruined. What do you got to say to that?
Horde's not ruined. First, I love buggies too. I mean, I'm not playing them right now, but I have a bunch. So someday, in 8th, I was running a Gorkanaut with sparkly bits and all the shenanigans you could do with that. That was incredible.
That thing is so much fun.
Oh my gosh. It hit, like, I swear, it was 100% hits. I'm a lucky guy, so whenever I shot, it was 100% hits. So
well, it was 88% turnaround on the if you're doing it with the weird boy and the 5-ups re-rolling at each other. It's seriously good stuff.
But I'm lucky, Chuck. It's 100%.
Okay.
So
he's like, if I roll below 100,
I also go with lucky. It's way better than not.
No, so I love all those things, but because of the way missions score now, I said initially out of the gate, I'm gonna take the missions. I'm gonna take the objectives. At the first tournament of a 9th I played in, I outscored my opponents 45 to 15, 45 to 20, and 45 to 10 on the primaries in the 3 games in the RTT. And it's what won me the tournament.
Is that mostly them just having their home objective? Is that where they got the few points they did get, or?
Yeah, I mean, and even on, like, I faced Admech with all the shooting in the last game, and he was blowing me off the table. Like, he killed 30 boys in his first round, but it allowed me just getting out of it. He blew up a truck. I got out forward with my boys. They were able to advance and charge and get on his robots. So I charged in and then piled into his robots. He wasn't able to kill a mob of boys, so then they had to shoot the robots instead of shooting where he wanted to shoot. Yep. And I was sitting on the objective with the 2 guys that were left. So he didn't get anything. And so it's continually kept him from scoring points while he was killing my army. And yeah, I lost a lot of guys, and in a kill battle, you'd go, wow, the Orks got massacred. But we had a lot of fun, and we won.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing I've seen so far with I played a couple of Horde games to see what is that waves. You want to send in a wave.
Yes.
Hold your opponent down. Okay, that guy taking care of that one. Here comes another one. And sort of just like busy them. Yeah. Until you're through, right? Is that kind of strategy we're using?
With the new Overwatch rules, if they have one of these Death Star shooting lists, I put a Death Copter up there, and then I had something else here, and I said, Death Copter's charging in. You gonna shoot your Overwatch? Yep. Oh yeah, I guess I will. And he blows the Death Copter away, and then my unit's into him, and there's nothing he can do. And okay, maybe he shoots me off the next turn, but again, I'm on the objectives, and he's not doing what he wants to do. He's not coming out of his deployment zone, and I'm all over the table. Also, I'm running a brigade right now, and so I've got 3 Def Goptas. I've got a unit of commandos, so I'm dropping stuff in. I dejumped a Pain Boy.
Right, Richard, actually, why don't you run us through that list, like on a high level? You don't have to give all the specifics, but what's in there?
So I've got the Killy Claw boss, the biggest boss. He's just he's got all the tools on foot. And then I've got 3 weird boys. I'm taking maniacal seizures. I'm taking 1 warphead with maniacal seizures and fists of Gork, and then I have 1 with warpath and 1 with the jump. Then I have a custom force field big mech, and then I have 2 units of 30 boys that are slugger boys. This is all death skulls, by the way. Yeah. 2 units of 30 boys with claws, 2 units of 10 boys with claws, and 2 trucks. Then I have a unit of 18 grots and then a unit of 10 grots. Then I have a unit of commandos, 3 Wabanner, Pain Boy, and 6 Meganobs with claws. Then I take 3 Def Coptas and 3 mech guns, smasher guns. So
no Mad Doc?
No Mad Doc. It's about 20 points more, and I'm just saving points.
Well, I'm hearing is 4 Gretchen.
What's that?
Gretchen. You're 4 Gretchen away from Mad Doc.
I heard about an 18-man unit of Grots there. I feel like Mad Doc's better. Why the 18-man unit of Grats?
Okay, I'm going to tell a trick right here for Orc War bosses. This is just beautiful. And if you get first turn, and there's an objective out in the middle of the table, to jump your grots and surround the objective so that there's nowhere that the enemy can get within an inch of within 3 inches of the objective in the movement phase. Yep. And then trail a line back, and then put your T-bone at the end so you keep coherency back to whatever unit you think they're going to shoot. And then when you grot shield, you pull the grots off the objective. They've already moved because they're in their shooting phase. They can't even get on that objective this turn because they can't charge because your grots are gone.
Yep.
So that's an objective that they can't even get on turn 1. So that's just another area where you can control objectives. So on my list, and that's another thing, I put my trucks in my I have 2 trucks as well. I put the trucks so that I can get out and then just walk forward and raise banners on 2 objectives right at the beginning of the game. And I usually have a character in at least each of those trucks, so the character could do it if I really needed the boys to do something else, if they needed to advance or charge somebody. So I could have the character just walk forward and raise the banner. So I'm controlling table as much as possible. Secondaries are really hard. We'll talk about that later, but secondaries are hard to pick in this edition. I think for everybody, but for Orcs, it's pretty hard right now to figure out what the best thing. But I'm finding raise the banners. I like that one a lot. But yeah, I dejumped. So this Pain Boy won this tournament for me. I dejumped a Pain Boy. He's Death Skull, so he's OBSEC. I dejumped this Pain Boy over. He sees one of those shooting out of line of sight tanks sitting on an objective. He charges him, makes the 9-inch charge, and I sat for 3 turns in combat with this tank because he wouldn't back out. He kept thinking, oh, I'm going to just shoot him and kill him with my guns. He never killed him. I'm sitting on the objective. I'm OBSEC, stealing that objective. That's why he only scored 10 points for the primary. And from one stupid Pain Boy that jumped across the table.
So I believe both of you were talking about Death Skulls. We feel pretty strongly that they're kind of the winner as far as cultures go.
Yes, but the movement for Evil Sons for me, board control is about movement, and that extra inch on everything is so powerful. But right now I still haven't switched, but I keep thinking in my mind I want to switch. But having OBSEC on all my characters, on my Mega Knobs, and on my Commandos that's almost more important than the other abilities.
Yeah, and that's for me. That's why I've looked at Death Skulls as well. Is the OBSEC, and the rerolls obviously are great, but that OBSEC seems super important.
Yeah,
I think clan is not necessarily a question that we've had to ask a lot in the past because we were able to take 3 attachments. So you could say,
really
okay,
good point.
Rich, you could be like, I really want to have a bunch of boys that move fast. Okay, all of my boys, they already have OBSEC, so that's all going to be my Evil Sun stuff. And my Mega Knobs and Commandos, that's going to go in my Death Skulls attachment, and my shooting stuff's going to go in my Bad Moons. That's never been a thing that we've had to worry about. With the change in detachments, we now are starting to have to pick and choose. You're right, Chuck. Evil Sons is very useful, particularly in the buggy list, because you can just move that much faster. But with Saga of the Beast, we got access to Visions in the Smoke, which is that psychic power that allows a unit to reroll to hit. And a lot of those big shooting vehicle units, giving them full rerolls with more DACA really starts to bring out some of the shine there. I think the one, your gun wagon.
The gun wagon. I run the gun wagon with 4 big shooters on it. If I've got 20 points at the end of the list, I throw a Laba on there, and that thing is a Titan. It picks up. I'll tell you, regularly picks up a Wraith Lord a turn. From experience, but really just kind of any vehicle. And I haven't played against Primaris yet, but I feel like an AP2 2-damage gun is going to really help me through that scenario.
Yep.
So the math on that gun, you give it the Boomer custom job, which is again one of those vehicle-ish relics. So it gets 2d6 shots. If it moves under half distance, it fires twice. So you're basically getting 46 strength 8 shots. You hit it with Visions in the Smoke because it's a platform that's under 18 wounds. I think it casts on a 6, right, Chuck?
That is correct.
So now it's rolling to hit. Then you hit it with more.
It casts on a 5 because you did take your bones for
the
one to cast.
Or you have 10 boys sitting by him.
Yeah. All that mixed together, you get a vehicle that on average puts out 12 strength 8 minus 2 2 damage hits. That's whatever you pointed at. That's just what it's going to hit that many times.
Yep. After moving 6.5 inches.
Yeah. So it's putting out a fair amount of shots. So you can, what in the game wants to get hit with 12 strength 8 minus 2 damage shots?
Is that without Mordaka?
That's with Mordaka.
That's with Mordaka.
At least the way I designed the list I'm playing with, that has that. I don't have another place for CP to go. I just accept that it is going to go into that gun through the gun the entire game, and then it's custom jobs, because it's so powerful. And they're honestly, at least my experience, I didn't really need CP in a lot of the other things.
I'd say Fight Again, the way I'm running my list, Fight Again is I'm using it so much more than I was because I'm saving the Mordaka and the Shoot Again. So I'm saving it for Fight Again. And that's just, and I think that even with less big units of boys, I think the morale rules now will make it easier to green tide because, I mean, morale
I can confirm that is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a much better strat now.
Morale is great for Orks now. So good. I mean, they kill 14 grots. I have 3 grots left, and I go, I'm fine. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. So let me throw some, again, because I like math. Let me throw this at you. So before, if you had a 10-man unit of grots, the basic, simplest thing you could get, if your opponent killed 6 of the 10, there was an 84% chance that your squad runs away.
Yep.
Now, if they kill that 6 out of that same 10-man squad, there was a 3% chance that entire squad runs away.
Yep. And but there's this another level of it as well, because those grots are standing on an objective.
Exactly.
And your opponent can't take the 16% chance they're just going to roll a 1, even if he brings them all the way down to 1 grot. So he's got to put that gun into that grot. And the fact that they're finishing off our squads that way really eats into their firepower.
Exactly. Chuck, here's another thing, is people are going, well, but you can't have these long lines of screens. Absolutely you can. You just put the bones at the end, and people go, well, if they shoot one guy, then half your grots disappear. If only half my grots disappear, I still have 5 grots for the next turn to go sit on another objective. That's a win for me. Mm-hmm. If you don't kill the whole 10-man grot squad, you're failing.
One of the things I like to do is to jump the large squad in front of my opponent on the first turn. Just say no, I actually own the board. You can't have better board control than you have to have fly if you want to leave 9 inches from your board edge, right?
That's another reason for the 18-man grot squad.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say, but I like your concept pretty good too. And it's
fine.
It's great. So you kill one, and I have to lose the whole unit or half the unit or whatever. I don't care. I caused your whole army to fail to move for less than 100 points. I'd buy that. That's better than a Thunderfire cannon.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of space in that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about a little bit, particularly when they were previewing rules. They previewed the blast rule and the unit coherency rule and like how tanks were going to be much more operational. And I think that made people feel like Horde was going to be done. And I feel very smart, because as soon as I saw all of those ticks against the Horde, I went, okay, Horde's going to be really good, because there's no reason they would take that many shots at us if we weren't going to be good. And I feel like the smaller board and this mission style allows Horde to really, really shine. And we kind of needed to take a hit, or I think we would have been too strong. It wouldn't have been very fun. Rich, is that kind of what you saw in your real tournament experience? Did you find that was the case?
Absolutely. I think until people adapt to I need to be able to do things in multiple parts of the table, until they adapt to that, we'll be fine. Because I found that all these people had these just devastating units, like 10, like I had buddies that play like 20 Wolfen, or they play the bunch of those robots, and they can shoot and destroy one thing, but then on the other side of the table, they had a very weak deployment, and I just took all those objectives and said, okay, I mean, yeah, you're slowly whittling me down on this side. I'm outscoring you on the primaries every turn. And I didn't see a lot of blast. That hasn't, at least in our local tournaments so far, they haven't started. You'd think, because I do really well locally, you'd think more people would bring blast, knowing I'm going to be there. But because I haven't switched to buggies yet. But when they switch to blast, maybe I'll switch to buggy stuff.
So the weekend that the game came out, or I guess the weekend before that, we all went to Colin's house and played some games, and Peter and I set up a game where he brought a lot of blast, not like over the top amount, but like kind of what you would expect blast from an Astra Militarum list, including a Wyvern. And I brought 120 boys in 30s, and this basically what my old tournament list was, which is 120 boys, the things to keep them alive. And then because Ludas are a little harder now, I switched up and just brought a bunch of smash guns. And he blasted me away, and it hurt. I lost whole units at a time, but come turn 3 and 4, when I started charging his army, and he didn't shoot at all, we saw it, right? Like it's not necessarily the only answer, right? The one that he pulled out that I got to give him props for is the grenades or blast. Yes. So he'd pop out of his rhinos and say, "Hey, all 10 of these guys are going to throw grenades at you." 10 d6 incoming grenades was that, and the Wyvern were top, but like a Lehman Russ always getting a 6 instead of like getting a 4. It's maybe one more dead boy. Like it does not matter. Like it's not.
I actually did the math on that too.
All right.
Well, tell me, Seth.
So I picked the 3 platforms that I figured you'd see most commonly: the Wyvern, the Thunderfire Cannon, and a Battle Cannon Russ Commander. And going from their average roll on whatever D6 shots they would get to the max if you ran a full unit of boys, the Wyvern goes. And then I figured, okay, well, you're not going to run a unit of boys naked. You're going to have a KFF on them. You're probably going to have a Pain Boy nearby. That's make them durable. So with 30 boys that are under the influence of a KFF and a Pain Boy, the Wyvern went from killing 2.9 to 5. The Thunderfire went from killing 2.5 to 3.7. And the Battle Cannon Russ went from killing 2.6 to 4.4. Like, it's really negligible increases on each one. Now, yes, over time, if your opponent has 3 Thunderfire Cannons, that's all going to stack up and be useful. But it really isn't like they went from killing 2.9 to 10, where you're just like, holy crap, how do I even handle a tripling of the damage output?
Yep. And that's kind of what I experienced in the real world, in that real world example, right? It's like, yeah, he's a little more efficient than he was, but not enough that it tips me, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that I own the board, like my natural charging at him is me owning the board, so I'm scoring all the points, and then he's got to catch up later. Like that doesn't work out for him very successfully.
Well, and Chuck, a strategy I used to use a lot back in the early part of 8th that I'm finding, I think with this edition will be back in, at least for me, is when they blow up a truck and I get a unit of 10 boys out with the new 6-inch deployment stratagem. Yeah. You actually deploy your boys 6 inches forward, you advance them up, and you advance your unit of 30 up, and you kind of leave a string back so you can mob up. You can drag 40 boys into a first turn charge with ease if somebody kills your truck now, because you're 6 inches further into the no man's land when they blow up your truck. I actually use that. Give my war boss. I use that to give my war boss a 7-inch charge into his robots, and I was buffed up with the
fists.
Yeah, I had 8 attacks, so I had 8 attacks, and I would have wrecked I failed the charge. But I still won the game, so that's okay.
It all evened out.
Look, if my war boss doesn't live through games, that's not his job.
No.
His job is to get pointed at the most big and shiny thing and try to kill it.
That's right. But nobody's gonna take the assassinate the war boss. What's that called? The stratagem to the secondary to kill your war boss.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you're
like, cool, he's gonna hang out.
Then you go, okay, I'll just hang out back here. That's okay.
Yep.
So I feel like that pretty much covers those 2 sections. And I honestly, part of the reason I want to have this discussion, and it really boils down true to after getting to talk to both of you. I feel like both are actually really viable, which is great because I know from like every time I ask people, including this time when I asked our Patreons for some questions for later in the episode, the Mad Max style list always comes up. And I know, like, in my heart, I want to paint that. I want to build that. I want that. And I don't want to feel like I did it just for hobby. I want to take it to an event and have a good time. And having played it a few times now, I feel very strongly that it's good. And then, Seth, you've been playing it for, like, since 8th. So you haven't even, you're ahead of me.
I played it when Saga of the Beast dropped. So
yeah,
I think with that list, you and I have been talking, the balance is finding enough durability and scoring in the truck boys and enough killing in the buggies and not going too far in one direction. You still need to have
the hardest part too.
Yeah.
Because you're making a meta call there, right?
Yeah.
You're saying,
right,
like,
exactly.
what am I going to face? This makes the right choice. I love my trucks, so I think I'm just going to be like 6 trucks and then whatever else junk I can throw in there. But we'll see. Yeah. I want to throw another list in front of you guys. It won a GT down in Australia by Andy Penn this last weekend. Unsurprisingly, it is also Death Skulls. It had a war boss on bike with a claw, Dead Killy, of course. And then he did this thing I thought was quite clever. He's got Death Killer War Trike, and he spent his CP and gave him the Fixer Upper. So now he's a mech. He can heal himself.
He can heal himself, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That guy's great.
Your pain boy can heal him too, can't he?
Oh, yeah. At least with the strat.
Character. Yeah, with the
because he's a character.
Yeah.
So you could get double healed on a turn.
So he works kind of like a demon prince does, where he goes and he cleans up little problems, and then he gets healed up and goes to catch another one. I think that's great. He also brought 2 full units of 3 Mega Track Scrap Jets, and then a single Shop Dragster, a single Custom Booster Blaster, and a single Boom Daka Snazwagon. And then I don't even know what this unit is. I own 27 of them, but I'm not sure. This War Biker. When has that been seen before?
Yeah.
He brings me a kind of hope that I had given up entirely on.
How many did he bring? How many bikers?
10.
Full unit of 10 with the power claw for the knob.
Nice.
I'm sold. You didn't have to say anything else. I'll pull them out of the closet and I'll give it a try. And then 2 heavy support choices, both Broombreaker battle wagons, and then the 1 Burnabama. I was looking at this list earlier, and there was a thing I didn't recognize that I do now after having talked to you guys. The Burnabama, first off, we should talk about that. It's a great tool. You can spend a strat to auto-explode it at the end of your movement phase. Yep. This forces your opponent's army to contort in strange and wondrous ways as they try to prevent you from getting like 9 mortal wounds out of this thing or worse.
27.
Oh my God.
I mean, if your opponent blobs up, if they're a character heavy list and you can get that thing because it's got a 6-inch radius on its explosion, if you can get that thing to tag multiple characters, they are going to be digging out of that hole the rest of the game.
Yep.
I did 27 mortals.
That's disgusting.
Not to mention, it can just drop its bomb normally as it flies over before it blows up.
It has this whole other profile that it can do as well. It's not just blowing itself up. But I was thinking about that, and then you mentioned some stuff, Seth, about the Shock Drowster sniping out characters.
Yeah.
We start looking at the list. It has a single shock junk. Mm-hmm. It's not because it intends to snap at a character, but it intends to make sure its opponent is honest. Exactly. And so it's pressing their screens and their fields and making them go a bunch of different directions and shape their army a specific way. On top of that, it's tossing in all these hardcore elements to push on them at the same time. This sounds like it's extremely hard to play against. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what you guys read by looking at it? Or like, is there anything else that pops out to you?
No, it sounds, I mean, that's a lot of shots.
Yeah.
How many shots? 60 shots out of that biker unit. That's brutal.
Yeah.
And the bone breakers are not easy to kill, particularly when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
9 buggies.
10 other vehicles to deal with in that list.
10, yeah.
And so, because they're going to be T8 with 16 wounds. One's got the Fortress, so it's a 3-up armor, 5-up invul, and the other's just a 4-up armor. They both got Garrote Riggers to heal. Word is from those that know, they basically turn 1 charge with those. You can move, advance, and then 3d6 charge with the Death Killer War Trike support and the ramming speed strat. So you're forcing them to spread out their army with the burner bomber, because if they castle up, you're just going to fly the bomber on top of their army and explode. So they spread out. So then you can run forward and tag them turn 1 with these bone breakers. And now you have, if you can get both of them up there turn 1, you're talking about, what, 32 toughness 8 wounds they have to take off before they can even start getting out into the field to engage the rest of that army.
And also a lot of that is, it's touching something. So there's like some of their tools are being used up in that process. And then those bikers are right behind.
Yep, the bikers, they're moving pretty darn fast. You've got the shock jump to threaten them if they decide to get sassy and leave you a hole in the backfield. You can be like, cool, I'm going to jump in there, and then 1 CP, I'm going to jump back out and hide it back in the ruin in my corner of the board, so you're not going to interact with it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're doing engage on all fronts, this has plenty of fast-moving pieces to help you get into all those spots. Like, honestly, if you hadn't won a tournament, I would have walked right past this list, right? Like, I'm still sort of stuck in that 8th edition mindset of like what's good or not. But you stop and look when somebody wins a GT with something,
right? And
you start pulling it apart, and I'm like, yeah, this is a reminder that I know very little about the Ork Codex now, right? Like, I got to do my homework. Start thinking about things.
I know there's some stratagems for bikes, and I don't know which ones were in Vigilus or which ones are in their Codex. So I've got to go back and look and see what
there's a +1 strength one.
Yeah. Yep.
On the charge that I think is great. I use that on the War Boss very minutely. But on that bike, but also again with the Death Skulls, we've talked about the Maniacal Seizures, but giving that -1 AP to an enemy unit
AP is always good.
And then shooting them with all those Warbiker shots, that's grand, right? You're going to do a fantastic amount of damage there. Yep. And if you were to direct those, so now you're rerolling to wound against a vehicle, you could bring down a Rhino or something. You could put some serious damage and work in there.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of good combos. Definitely losing the Vigilus strats kind of hurt, because there was one that you could just double the movement on a on a Cult of Speed unit. So you could have those Warbikers just like, I'm just going to go 40 inches this turn. See you later.
I would charge your army from behind.
Yeah,
it's turn 1. Who cares? Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't that sad to lose the souped up shock attack gun. The way things work,
that was coming.
Yeah, and it's also the way things work. I don't want to he's not going to. I don't want to buy another thing to babysit him, so that he can't be targeted, right? And I don't want to move him because he loses so much when you move him. So it's just like, actually he's not very viable anymore. But I wanted that strat. I love the double move, and then the one where you could 2d6-inch pile in with them.
Yeah.
You could.
The double move was also really good for the Deathkiller War Trike, because you could turn him into a missile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, go pick off some weedy Eldar in the back so he doesn't do any of his Farsight trickery.
Yep. But alas.
Yep. Well, maybe we'll get a book and some of those tricks will come back.
Yeah. Well, I don't get our hopes up. I keep telling my buddy, maybe next October, maybe next October. I don't want to get my hopes up, because there's a lot of codexes that probably need updated more than ours do.
Well, maybe. Did you see the little previews of some boys, though?
I did. That looks like boys to me.
Yeah, it looks like boys to me, too. And that makes me think, like, maybe sooner. Who knows?
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a runt herd.
Oh, it could be.
They're going to make a new Gretchen kit.
Wah.
No, don't do a GW.
So let's see, is there anything else that you feel like 9th edition has changed the game quite a bit? We've talked about a lot of the different stuff that we're doing, but is there other things that Orks get out of a 9th edition change in that stick out to you guys?
I think because there are going to be more vehicles. I think that tank bustas, the argument used to be tank bustas, ludas. I think tank bustas are far superior to ludas now.
Yeah. I think ludas also took that hit. They took a little bit of hit in points, but the Gretchen also taking a hit in points also hurt them, because it used to be like, I can put for 90 points, I can put 30 Gretchen in front of my ludas and say, here's 30 more wounds you got to get through now. Have fun. That's
one of my
nice, cheap attacks anymore.
One of my favorite patrols now is just the Weird Boy, 30 Shooter Boys, and the 10 or the 15 tank busters and their 6 bombs. Because you could, that 30 man can be jumped up forward, and you could put the strats into the 5/6s and then to shoot them again, and so you can get that first turn. I'm going to clear out a bunch of your screening. I can block you off from the board, and then the Bad Moon ones can come in later. Because again, like we're talking about with the Bird Obama and stuff, is your opponent has to play differently when something like some Tank Buster Boys are going to hit the table. They got to screen their tanks constantly until they've done it.
Yeah, Chuck, you were asking about things that Orks got in 9th edition that has been interesting. I think you showed one of the most interesting things in 9th edition, which was the generic outflank strat.
Oh, yeah. That's a good call. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Because we've had the teleport strat, but it's 2 CP for a unit. You spent how many CP to outflank 16 mech guns?
It's like 3 or 4. So I walked to the table with Peter, and I've said, hey, get a bunch of blasts, put together an average Imperial Guard army, and we'll put the Orks on the table, and we'll push it. We'll see how this works. And he comes up and he's like, here we go. And he goes, remember, I'm Talarn, so my tank commanders are all going to be able to move and then shoot and then move back into their position. And I look at the table, and I'm like, if I put my smash guns on the table, they're going to do nothing ever. So I outflank all of them. And his face dropped. He was like, uh-oh. Because I came in on either flank. I lined up shots. I took out like 2 tanks on the turn I arrived. And then what's he going to do? Is he going to stop shooting at the horde of 120 boys coming at him to shoot the smash guns? Nope. Classic, high pressure. I'm just going to put everything in front of you. And you're going to make a bad choice because there's not a good one. But yeah, that's definitely... I think that there's also some other pieces that could probably benefit from that. But the fact that Grots get it, I think is amazing.
Oh yeah, you could put 9 units of Grots for 1 CP.
Yeah.
If you had that, I mean, I don't think you would take that, but
yeah.
Well, you can have 4 smash guns and 1 unit of Grots for 1 CP.
Yeah.
I do think that's a very regular thing to include all the time.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, what are you going to do about it?
I think one of the strengths for 9th is going to be, and they talked about this, and some people go, oh yeah, I understand multiple small units. I don't think people really understand what multiple small units means until you see an Ork brigade across from you. And then they go, oh, I'm going to put these 3 units over on this objective, and oh, you're gonna shoot the Def Copta off, you're gonna shoot the commandos off, but that character that was sitting back there, he's sitting on the objective and scoring the primary again. And it's just like so many units on the table, you just can't shoot them all off.
Yeah, and I think that also forces a lot of bad target priority choices because, again, with so many things, you just got to hit 1 or 2 of those 6s where they thought they were just going to kill that unit, and then nope, that commando knob, he's still alive. He's still sitting there. And now you've got to get him off.
He's got a power claw, and he's got objective secured, and he's extremely relevant to the game.
And he's a 4+ armor if you shoot out of line of sight at him.
Yeah.
I think commandos just need a good shout out in general because they are now 1 point more expensive than a boy.
Yep.
At 9 points, and they are a free deep strike. I have 3 units in my list for this weekend, and I'm literally just going to walk up to every table and pre-game you have to say what's in deep strike. I'm like, my 3 commando units are in deep strike.
Absolutely.
And these are just, again, these are backfield threats. If you don't screen me out, I can just drop these in behind you. If you don't screen me out, I can just drop the shock jumps in. If you don't screen me out, I can to jump my war boss or to jump Gretchen onto a unit. And just have all of these threats where if you don't constantly keep trying to bubble me out of places, I'm going to get there. I'm going to be on that part of the table.
The other thing that those tank busters have is they do have, I mean, not tank busters, those commandos have, they have a tank buster bomb.
Yep.
They have a tank buster bomb. I mean, so if there's something back there that's really nasty to shoot, I killed a Keeper of Secrets with 3 tank buster bombs out of 2 trucks and a unit of boys. Just threw 3 tank buster bombs on him, and he failed, and he just died. And he was going, wait a minute, how did that happen?
Like, that's a free upgrade to a boy, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just think there's definitely a lot of ones you can get the spikes on those types of rolls by just having a bunch of those small units, but also it just forces bad target priority when you make 1 or 2 of those clutch saves, and then suddenly your opponent, well, I was expecting that unit to be dead, but now I have to turn around and deal with it again.
Yeah, they fall into sort of the trap of split fire, and then they keep split firing because things are failing, and then you take advantage of a plan, and they end up killing 3/4 of what they planned on or whatever.
And a lot of these armies that are going more elite, they're not going to necessarily have the pure volume of shots you need to deal with something like that, where if you're taking more quality shots and less quantity, it's also going to help when that spike occurs for the orcs.
So Seth, have you considered in your commando choice to not bring the knob?
I have, but I've also punched Eldrad to death with that knob, and it's too good of a memory to not bring him. So that's actually, this spins off to a good point. So Rich, you were saying it's hard for orcs to pick secondaries right now with my buggy list. The two I'm pretty much always thinking I'm going with is engage on all fronts and deploy scramblers. Because deploy scramblers it's 10 points. It's an easy 10 to get. I can do it in 3 turns pretty easily.
Tell me what that one does.
So you deploy, it's an infantry unit that performs the action. You have to perform 3 actions, 1 in your own deployment zone, 1 in no man's land, and 1 in your opponent's deployment zone. If you do 2 of the 3, you get 0 points. If you do all 3, you get 10 points, and the action's completed at the end of your turn. So again, if you leave me that hole and I can put commandos in your deployment zone, boop, there's that.
Yeah.
They're going to perform an action.
I think in general,
I can get my boys out of a truck and perform an action. I can get a character in my backfield to perform an action. Boom, there you go. I've got 10 points. And that's a pretty easy 10 points with pretty minimal investment. So I'm going for those 2 things. And my last thing is always kind of, what can I kill in my opponent's army? And one of the things that most people still bring is a pile of characters. And that's why I like those claw knobs, because I can just go, did you leave me an opening? Because I'm going to go kill this Death Jester with this claw knob. He's got 3 attacks. He's hitting on 4s. I'm going to use all my Death Skull rerolls on him, so I can reroll some hits, some wounds, some damage.
Yeah.
Are you going to take
that
that
Power
risk?
Claw is shockingly effective. I don't think anyone sees that coming.
Very good.
Because the way I try to tell people about it is if you're a Death Skull, the unit gets 2 more shots of your best weapon.
Yeah.
Is basically what that runs out to be. And on a 5-man unit for 40, 50 points with the claw?
Yeah, it's 55 points with the claw.
If you throw the claw, you're doing great.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think at 45 points, if you were just going for I just want to be able to snag engage, because that unit also gets you engage on all fronts, while it's also getting you deploy scramblers. So a 45-point unit that's tagging 2 of my secondaries, and I can have a couple more of them in reserve. So turn 2, okay, here's my 1 for deploy scramblers and engage. Turn 3, here's my 1 over here for deploy scramblers, engage.
And I don't think people will be screening out the table, even though the table's smaller. A lot of armies won't be, because they have to get on the objectives and they don't have huge volume.
Yeah,
well, if they're screening out like that, you can in Seth's case, he just brings all his buggies to one flank and you can just wreck them for doing it. And in your case, you're like, great, you've spread out. I'm going to go right down the center.
Yep.
I'm going to cut your army in half. That's not going to work for them. They lose the game to stop you from getting that point.
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
What secondaries are you looking at, Rich?
So Raise the Banners was really good for me. There's been some debate because in the rules, actions specify that you can't have 2 units do an action, the same action. Yeah. And then so a couple of people were arguing, well, then there's a typo because Raise the Banners says you can. So they're going, is that a conflict? And I'm going, no, it's one of those situations where they give the general rule and then this is an exception for Raise the Banners. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I Raise the Banners. They played it that way at the tournament. I guess maybe they should look at that for an FAQ. To me, it's not confusing, but
yeah, I mean, if you think about it in the reverse, if they only let you put 1 banner up a turn 1, the best you can do is 1 point. Turn 2, the best you can do is 2 points. Turn 3 or 3, you don't max out with that.
Right. Yeah. And you actually can't score it on the first turn. So
yeah. So you couldn't even max. Yeah. If you read it as the most literal interpretation like that, you wouldn't even be able to get 15 points.
But
and generally the things that they try to make less than 15 points, they also try to make easy. It's the risk reward. Do you want the easy 10 points or do you want the hard 15?
And I've read through it, and it's very specific about you take this action, and then for every infantry unit, it's not a confusion of wording. I think it is because they said actions are 1 unit does this thing, and then without any warning, they were like, and with this action, lots of units do a thing, and I think that kind of throws people. I think a little FAQ just to make sure everybody feels comfortable would be good.
Right. So the other one I took a lot at the tournament was Line Breaker, and they're all in that the three in that category are all good. So it's Domination, Line Breaker, and Engage on all fronts.
Yep.
And Engage is really good if you're willing for that unit really to do nothing when you come in the back. But there's so many times, but with Line Breaker, I'm going, well, they just have to be back there. They can still do stuff. So so I liked Line Breaker, and it hurt me in one of the games, but then on my third one, there's nothing easy to choose. You kind of have to look at your opponent's army, but I've been choosing a lot of different things, and in reality, I scored a lot of points in the tournament, but it was secondaries where I lost points. I never lost a point on primaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I would ask people when they show me their lists and stuff, like, so what secondaries will you pick? And I hear basically the same thing. It's like, I can do these two secondaries regardless of who my opponent is. And then I'm looking at my opponent and saying, like, what can I kill from you? I think that's a pretty consistent story.
Yeah.
It's worth considering, like, can we make a list where, like, there's no effective kill from me? Like, I have enough variety, right, that it's not a good choice.
Yeah, I think you could do that, but there's some of the mission specific secondaries are also pretty easy to
decent.
get.
Yep.
And
then you'd get stuck for nothing.
So
a lot of people are used to taking what is the one from ITC where you kill all the boys? Reaper?
Yeah.
Reaper.
Oh yeah.
Reaper.
I've tried to block those out, but they took Reaper, and so they feel comfortable choosing that against Orks. That is, even with my list, that is hard to do, to get a max.
It's 150 models you got to kill
versus 80, right? It almost doubled.
I don't have 150 models.
Yeah,
now I do have 2 trucks, so you can get it, but you basically have to table me.
Yeah. So they're saying is like, but for me, if I can get 10 points out of a secondary, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good enough.
And that's what people haven't come to grips with yet, that you're not going to max many secondaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see as events are played over the next several months and years, what the average winning score, is. Because like right now, coming back from ITC previously, like the championship missions, if you scored like mid 30s, you probably won your game, so that was a good benchmark. If you could get 36 to 40 points, you were pretty solid. And that kind of became the target of, I need to be able to try to get to that level if I want to succeed. What's that level going to be in the new mission set?
Yeah, one of the things I talk about with my local crew, right, is in normal times with normal levels of intensity at an RTT, if you want to win that RTT, it's not just winning 3 games.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a bunch of people there. There's going to be 3 or 4 people who won a bunch of games. You got to make a list that's going to score highly every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 9th edition missions really sort of mix that up a little bit. And then that same mentality comes into like a 5-round GT that's highly attended, right? Like there could be 2 people with 5-0 records and you want to be the guy on top.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you're not thinking about killing almost at all. Right now you think about, how do I score? How do I keep him from scoring? Has to be part of your game plan.
Yep.
To keep him from scoring primary points has to be part of your game plan.
Yeah, it's a big part of like what's going on. Like that's one of the reasons I like the truck boys, is just drive the truck up near them and say, you will blow this truck up, or I'm going to walk out onto your objective next turn, right? It's a good way to pressure somebody into killing something they don't want to.
I think that's why Storm Boys took such a huge points jump.
Oh my god!
I think that's why? Because they could get up on objectives easily.
Oh yeah,
and
it wasn't just Storm Boys. And Richard, you're right. If you look across the board, it's everybody who had jump in. If you have really fast moving infantry, they went up in points. And I think that it's similar to the way that I was talking about with all the all these problems that came to make hordes worse. I think they had to make jump infantry worse because they play the game very well.
Yes.
Particularly when you can do things like Death Skulls, where you can take a non-troop choice and make it object. If you had, if they didn't do that and they kept them at 9 points and be like, cool. So I'm going to run 60 Storm Boys in turn 1. I'm just going to be on every objective with OBSEC.
Yeah,
Your
touching a
go.
bunch of stuff, probably getting off more than one trap with that.
Yeah. You're like,
like,
your
okay.
go. Cool. I own all the objectives with OBSEC. You know.
Yeah.
Here's my second wave. Next turn.
Yeah. So I think I would reiterate it because I think it is one of the most important things. Death Skulls, giving OBSECs to infantry, I think is what puts them on top. Like I keep making lists a bunch of different ways. I love my Evil Sons, but man,
I think that and maniacal seizures. Maniacal seizures to me is a very importantly, it does not require line of sight to cast it on the target. So your weird boy can be hiding behind obscuring terrain and just say, you're not going to get back at me, and I'm going to throw this power on you. And to me, it's that insurance piece. You know, someone runs up their big super duper unit killiness, and you're like, cool, all right, I'm going to give myself extra AP so I can try to take more of you down this turn. But it's also the insurance of if I don't kill that entire unit, so sake of argument, someone runs up, you know, a bunch of
aggressors.
Yeah, aggressors. You know, and I don't wipe the unit. You're now -1 when you go to shoot back at me. So I've not only blunted your firepower by killing some more of you, I've also blunted your firepower by reducing your rolls against me.
Yeah.
And again, that's going to throw the math off for the opponent. That's going, well, I should have been able to wipe that boy unit with 2 aggressors, but now I only killed half of it.
Yeah, and they do that -1, but then also the 6-up armors, the invul, and like all that stuff sneaks up on them.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of 1,000 cuts that eventually pile up to say we're more durable than you thought.
And then like, Rich, you've been playing with the 30-man Slug of Choppa boys, right?
Oh, brutal.
With the maniacal surges going into a combat, like, so much damage.
All those 2+ infantry guys, it's often with toughness 5, that we have so much trouble with. Maniacal seizure helps immensely.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an interesting thing I found. In 8th edition, we charged tanks to stop them from shooting with infantry. Now in 9th, I think we charge infantry with tanks to stop them from shooting. Because infantry, if they're in combat with your tank, they can't shoot it.
And they can't fall back and shoot with fly anymore.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I also, to add to your point, Rich, is I often will do that to stop them from being able to move with an advance or a charge, so that they can't make it to an objective, right? It's like, here, fight my buggy. Nothing important happens here, but your next turn movement is screwed up. Your shooting is gone. Like, it's a lot of value shows up there.
It's the value of a multiplicity of units, that I can throw a unit at you and say, oh, I've got 2 Defcoptas. I'm going to charge them both. If you're going to spend the CP for Overwatch to kill one, and you can't kill the other one in combat, which a lot of units can't, then you're not going to shoot next turn. You're not going to move where you want to move. Yeah, you're in a bad situation.
Yeah.
I think that's another unit that's worth a call out. Deathcoptas are amazing.
Oh, they're so great. So great.
As far as just like owning a board section, getting around, taking an Overwatch, whatever. They do a lot of value for 35 points.
And they put out 6 shots, and if you're playing Death Skulls, they get to re-roll. I was hitting 3 to 5 shots on. I'm lucky. I was hitting 3 to 5 shots and just putting down Poxwalkers all day long. Just having a wheel time,
and then charging into combat and getting another set of re-rolls.
Yeah.
And they're fighting in combat pretty decently with their spinning blades, and if they choose not to leave, you can still shoot them because you're just shooting assault weapons. And if your turn, you decide you want to leave, you can be like, cool, I have fly. I'm going to go leave now and move and go clog up this lane over here. Go sit on this objective over here.
Yeah.
So very handy. And if you go Evil Sons, you can take a big blob of them and be like, cool, more DACA and Visions in the Smoke.
Yep. And just so fast. Yeah. So fast.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get them Evil Sons with the advancing and
so they're going like 24, 22 inches, something 23. Like that.
Yeah. Something silly.
And then a CP to move them twice.
Yeah.
And don't forget there are vehicles, so you can do ramming speed.
Yep.
And they can shoot. They can shoot in combat.
Yep.
They block for characters. There's a couple of times where I've put my war boss in a bad spot and just been like, and this guy will go stand next to him.
That's exactly right.
And it is important to point out, they're not easy to kill. They're T5 with 4 wounds and a 4-up armor save. If you're Death Skulls, they got that 6-up invuln on top of that, so they are not just dying to a stiff breeze.
Yeah, and they can hide behind a lot of things too. Yeah. Like they can maneuver around.
Yep.
All right, let's pop through a couple of questions we have from our Patreon group. This first one's from me, but I'm going to pretend it's from the Patreon group.
You're a Patreon.
Yeah, you're a Patreon, right? You're in the Patreon.
Yeah. How many painted grots do you have, and how much does that weigh on you? Let's start.
Nope. I think we froze.
Uh-oh. You there, Chuck?
Chuck, you there? Sorry, Chuck. I think you froze.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
You're back.
We're back?
Yeah.
All right. Great. It's towards the end of the episode. No one will know.
It's fine. Colin will cut this out, right?
Yeah. We'll fix it in post. That never happened.
No.
So how many painted grots do you have, Seth? Just off the top of your head.
I think I have about 130, and I'm pretty sure my guilt of having that many weighed on my dog, so she started eating them. Yeah. She literally started stealing them off the cart in my room from behind me and eating them. No, I killed a Meganob too, but I think
she's like a service animal. She's getting rid of your stress.
Yeah, she's like, I know this is causing emotional distress, Dad. I got it. Did I mention they're all painted different colors for the coating of the squad? So there's 9 different colors of clothing on them.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah.
I did mine in 2 stages like that. I have 30-man squads that are painted a certain way, and then 10 and 10 out of each of the squads has another color that differentiates them, so that I can get clever about 30s and 10s if I need to.
Yes. Or cunning, you might say.
Oh. How many you got, Rich?
So I have 100 that have that are armed, and then I have about 80 grot crew that are painted.
Oh yeah, I didn't count grot crew.
I was thinking those guys.
Yeah, I got them too.
I stopped counting at 200 and decided I didn't actually want to know the answer. It's so easy for me to just put 10 grots over with the rest of my painting and just like put a little bit on them as I go and then throw them in the box. Yep. I can't imagine playing, say, like more than 20 on a regular basis. Rich, you said you had like 28. I think that's.
I have 28 in my current list.
But you had a pretty good plan for them. Like I feel like I'm just like, oh, well, I have a lot of these. I'll wait until they're, I gotta have them again.
Yeah. I definitely think there's still some use for them. There's some times you're gonna reel them out. I mean, they're still the cheapest troop tax you can take if you're trying to just, you got that mandatory slot you got to fill up.
Well, I have not had any trouble finding 20 points to turn those into boys.
Here's another thing. Here's another thing I do with grots all the time is I will advance and charge them to base all the models of a unit that I don't want piling in on my boss.
Yeah.
So if my boss is going to go into something that he's going to decimate them, but then they might have a chance to pile in and do a lot of damage back to him, the grots will go in and base every one of them and go, hey, we're just here to trip you up so that they can't pile in.
In the days of the Centurions, that was like a constant.
Yeah.
Right. Send in the 4 damage boss, send in the grots get wiped, boss kills half, rinse.
And then boss piles in and kills the other half if he can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is probably my favorite question out of the whole pile. It speaks directly to my heart. What's the best unit, and why is it Deathcopter? Like, I will tell you, I'm a Deathcopter fan. I am in the middle of basically rebuilding and reconverting my 15 Deathcopters. So I have Squidcopters, regular Copters, and Taocopters. They're all going to be wonderful. I have a list in my phone that is 15 Deathcopters and 10 Orks. I want Orks and helicopters. By the way, that list is pretty real because the Orks don't take the -1 on the heavy weapons anymore.
Right.
And they're cheap for the wounds and the gun and the movement. And it's just sad because the rest of the army is a bunch of grots and dumb characters that aren't doing anything. But we'll see. I'll probably get to test it sooner or later. So why is it Deathcopters, Seth? Why is that the best unit?
I mean, that hurts me a little bit. That they are a very good unit, but I
believe the question states that they're the best unit, Seth. Not a very good one. The best.
But how do you tell me the war boss isn't in this conversation? I mean, like, you're talking about an 80-point character that can Hadouken off a knight. Like, if you go crazy, like, there's just so much that war bosses give you. I mean, yes, the Death Copter is great, and you can be tricksy with it. And I love back when you could when there was instant kill in like 6th or 7th edition, because I definitely shot some Tech Marine gunners with those things, with those rockets, and just like, yeah, your Thunderfire's gone now. Have fun.
Get out of here.
You failed the armor save. He's gone now. So they're very good, but they're not the best in my heart. But I understand that I have a unique perspective.
Well, I think what you're saying is the reason they're the best is because they can take the Overwatch for the war boss.
Yeah, very true. Someone's got to take the bullets for the war boss, because the war boss charging the knight by himself is probably not great idea. Yeah, probably not great.
I think they're the best because I have 30 of the plastic ones.
Oh my god!
I think that's why they're the best.
What do you need 30 for?
I just collect things.
Give them to me.
So I've been converting, because you don't take them with rockets anymore. So I'm converting. I have Luda guns that I'm putting. I cut out the rockets and then I put Luda guns in the hole. So yeah. But the war boss, I think the best thing about losing the Vigilus is the war boss is back.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I love it.
It took away the relic shock attack gun and made us start looking for where else can I put relics and warlord traits. And without him hogging up, the war boss was like, yes, my time has come. Give me my big claw and my brutal but cunning again.
And the biggest boss.
And he's got the biggest boss. Also, like, sometimes I give up brutal but cunning for the +1 strength, +1 attack. I forget what it's called.
Might is right. Yeah, that's what I'm running this weekend. And
it's pretty good.
Specifically because the extra attack is very good. And I think there's going to be some, 4 damage is great, but there's also going to be some times that I just want 1 more 3 damage attack rather than.
Yep.
But you got to choose it. You got to choose it on your list.
I did. Yep. I'm locked in.
Okay.
If I walk up to Centurions, I'll probably cry.
But they'd be more Primaris than there will be Centurions, and he will wreck them.
Yeah, yep. But if aggressors or eradicators or whatever the new Melta Gravis dudes show up, I'll be like, yes, my time has come.
All right, this second question we've kind of already answered, but I'll throw it out there. Which of the buggies are worth taking? I think Mega Scrapjet, top of the line.
Yeah.
But like, where would you go next?
Shock Jump's on there, and the other one we didn't mention that I would say is worth taking is the Custom Booster Blaster. Mm-hmm. It's a 90-point vehicle. So it's one of the cheapest ones you can get for them. Its rivet cannon is basically a 6-shot AP2 autocannon, which is just good. It's 36-inch range, which is also one of the longest guns on the buggies. So it can sit back and be that second wave and still throw some chip shots in. The secret sauce to that is it has 4 Burna jets, which are just like D3 Strength 4 flamers. But the special strat for them makes all of those 4 guns become Assault 3, 10-inch range, Strength 5, -1. So you basically get 12 heavy flamer hits out of that thing, which it can sneak up on an objective and surprise some folks. And just say, hey, you had 10 guardsmen here. Here's 9 wounds on them. You don't have 10 guardsmen anymore.
I played a game.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, as somebody who doesn't currently have any, if I was only, I want to know your opinions. If you were only going to run 1, because I'm considering running 1, it's the Shock Jump Dragster, because just for 1, that there's so many uses I find for that buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a one-off, I think the Shock Jump is amazing to have. Just like we were talking about before, just your opponent has to think about it. If it just sits in the backfield parked, it's giving you value, right? One of the things I wanted to say about the other buggy, Custom Booster. I always screw it up in the other one. Now they're all screwed up in my head.
Yep.
Anyway, the Flamer one, is it because it's so cheap, and sometimes it's amazing, and then sometimes it's really not. Like the last game I played was all mechanized Eldar. It wasn't going to do anything, but it was cheap, and so I put it out on the objectives. I pushed it into Colin's face. I just bullied him with them and made him shoot them. So they became scrapjets because he had to shoot these guys first. So if you are smart about how you play them, you don't go too far into any one of them. You can at least use the buggies in such a way that the ones you value most will die last.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with them is because all the buggies, they have the speed walkability, so you can take a unit of 3 in the list build, and at deployment, you put them down as a unit of 3, and then they become 3 individual.
Mm-hmm.
You can take those 3, and for 2 CP, you can teleport strike them.
Oh, yeah. That's
so
good.
Whatever if you're taking multiple buggy units, whatever one is the most valuable to you that you're like, you know what, I really don't want to happen, turn 1, lose all my Megatrax. That's what I've been doing. I go, what's my most important one? Those 3 go in deep strike, and I'm going to take board position. And when my opponent doesn't remember that I have 3 more vehicles coming in, then I can go, okay, where do I need these to be? And they have 24-inch range on most of their guns. So even if they try to screen out, well, you're probably going to get an opportunity.
So I guess the core answer to that question is get your Megatrax scrapjets first.
Yeah.
But then like a little bit of everything else, then maybe more Megatrax scrapjets.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever really, if you really want to know about buggies, you can talk to me, and I've done all the math on all the different combos. But those are the 3 that are going to do the most work for you. The Boom Deck of Snazwacken is fun. It's got a -1 to hit. It blows up on a 4+. It doesn't really do a ton of damage.
It's called a Boom Deca. Like
exactly. It's got.
I love it a lot.
If you have a Rocket Truck Squig Buggy, that is by far the most characterful Ork model I have ever seen. Yes. I love it. It's an Ork food truck. Okay, it's an Ork food truck. People, why do you not want that? But I'm
gonna scrap it for Squigs for the rest of my army.
Yeah,
like
it's kind of hot garbage in its damage output, but I love it.
I love that they're barefoot.
Oh yeah, and they're all like heavy set dudes because they've been eating their own product.
Yeah, they run the food truck.
Yeah.
Why would they give that food to other people?
This tells such a great story. Yeah,
it's here. Oh, and then I guess the big question, like I said, is always here: Mad Max style, right? I want to play the Ork list. I want to play the buggies. I want to play all the vehicles. Seth, just I guess tell us what's the list.
I think there's a few versions of it right now. I think the core of it is at least 3 Megatrax and 3 shock jumps. For me, throwing 1 shock jump in is great, but throwing 3 in, I can have that sacrificial one that I throw on an objective and throw some damage on a vehicle or something and make my opponent deal with it. I'm also running the 3 Boom Deckas as well right now, so I'm running 9 buggies. But I think you could make the argument that those don't go in, and maybe you just do more Megatrax, or you just stop at 6 of them.
Or apparently war bikes.
Or war bikes, yeah. I think there's some options there. I'm running at least 4 units of Truck Boys, and I'm putting kill saws in them and tank buster bombs because the Death Skulls, just those extra rerolls are great. They're all shooter boys, so if I just want to play drive-bys and shoot light infantry, that's an option for me. Otherwise, the trucks are just like a moving big shooter, and that's about it. I don't put anything else on a truck at this point. I've messed around with wrecking balls in the past, and they've been all right, but for 5 points, I don't think they're worth it anymore. I think once you've got your Truck Boys and you've got your 6 to 9 buggies, after that, it's flavor to taste. If you want to go crazy and throw in more Truck Boys and buggies, that's kind of, I think, a good path. But I think throwing in the Burner Bomber to force your opponent into weird deployments, throwing in Commandos to say, hey, did you forget about screening because here's a 5-man guy unit in your backfield, is an option. I think if you want to be silly and just say, hey, the thing with the buggy list is you're going to give up, bring it down. If you get 8 vehicles in your list, which I've talked about the minimum being 10, you're giving full points for that. So you can be like, hey, you know what? I have this. I have those 6 buggies. I got those 4 trucks, and I also have 12 smash guns.
Yep.
You can throw that kind of stuff. So the core, I think, is about those 6 buggies, and then 4 to 5 units of Truck Boys. I think you're right, Chuck. That's a meta call just in terms of how much durability are you going to need. Like 5 Truck Boys might not be nearly enough if you go up against the shooting wall that is AdMech right now. But other lists, like some of the more board control style lists, 4 units of Truck Boys is going to be plenty.
Well, let's talk about that AdMech list, right? If it's going to be relatively stationary, shooting you from a position, and you have 10 plus vehicles, that means you can sacrifice 2 vehicles every turn of the game.
Yeah.
To screw with their objective holding, and then hold your own objectives, hopefully from hiding. That wins you the game, right? You talked about having 4 minimum for your boys. 4 boys and trucks is a good minimum. I've kind of landed on the same number, just as the flow of the game goes, I feel like there's a certain number of times you need to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And like I see it in a lot of lists that I look at, particularly from some of the high level players, where they've taken the troops beyond the minimum, and it's often to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Just to get that.
Yeah, the list I'm running right now, I've got the 4 trucks, and then I just threw in 2 units of Gretchen because someone to maybe babysit my weird boy in the back who's casting powers. Like, I just want to have someone there so they can't be like, well, your weird boy is in the back hiding behind a building, but I have a thunderfire cannon. Just having that unit nearby to shield him from that, as well as just having options that I can say, hey, you know that objective in the middle of the field that you left open? Here's 10 Gretchen on it. Come kill the 10 Gretchen.
Well, and there's a lot of power in those units, truck boys. If you get 2 out and mob them up, and then put Warpath on them, that's still 100 attacks. You can still put out volume of swings if you need to.
Yeah. So I definitely, I think they also are going to surprise people with their killiness. I do like the bike war boss, but I'm not running him right now. I think it just keeps up with the trucks, and you don't necessarily have to keep him in the truck, because I think if you put characters in trucks and you're advancing them up the field, they just become bullseyes, because they know they need to get that truck killed versus if I can keep all the trucks equal in my opponent's threat level, that I think that also forces bad choices versus if I say there's several trucks, but this one has a character in it, and you're like, well, I'm going to kill that one because I want to limit that guy's mobility.
One of my favorite tricks along that line is to have a unit of knobs and put them in the truck, because that turns that truck into that unit. And if you keep it near cover when it dies and you loot it and get the +1 save and then jump into cover for the 2 up, and you just kind of like, oh, now what have you done? I have Primaris Terminators or whatever.
Yeah. You know what you can put in trucks too? Mega knobs.
Burna Boys.
Yep. That's why I only have 6. Yep.
But you can put them in a truck. You're not going to benefit from loot it when it blows up, but you can hurdle that up the board and say, here you go, have some mega knobs.
What you gonna do? And with this, if you do it in the right spot, they shoot into them, and then you can spend the 6-inch
emergency disembark
to really get deep into them. Like, okay, so now you've blown up a truck. What are you going to do about these 6 mega knobs? Or these 2 3-man units of mega knobs?
The corner where they can't see them and go, okay, next turn, these mega knobs are going to walk around the corner and be right in your face.
Well, and I often start my mega knobs not in the truck, so they don't know which way, because I'll have 2 trucks, and the mega knobs can get to either one. So the 10 boys get out, go throw up a banner, and the mega knobs just run to whichever truck they want to get in.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so I think that's Mad Max.
Yeah, so I feel like it's very real, and I think people have been waiting a long time for it. So I'm very excited. I guess go hobby, make beautiful armies. It is time.
Yes.
If you love the boys, they're plenty good.
They are.
Having even just played one game with 120 boys, it is not a mistake. It's not bad. It will win you a lot of games. And I was playing with an older style list. I hadn't taken the time to make the changes that Rich did to his list to make it even better. So there's plenty of space in there.
Yeah.
It's a good time for us. We should get in there and enjoy it the best we can. Any final thoughts for us before we get out of here?
Keep playing your orcs. I know a lot of people who switch armies, but I think that in general, orc players don't do that as much. There's some people who do, but a lot of orc players are pretty loyal, and I love that. And just keep playing them, even if you do struggle for a little while. Eventually, just practice makes you better. And then when a codex does come out, you will be so much better because you practiced with them when they were maybe a little weaker.
Yep.
So what you're saying is, say, train with some weights on there, Rich?
Yes.
Train with the weights on, then take them off. One of the things when 8th first came out, I was like, oh man, orcs are in a bad spot. I'm going to play chaos. And when the orc codex came out, I was like, oh man, I should have been playing orcs this whole time. I'd be ready to run with this thing because it was powerful.
Yes.
That's when I had to catch up.
That's when I beat Brandon and Jeff. Was right after that, because I've been playing orcs all along. Then I got some beef, and I won a couple of big tournaments.
Yeah.
All Right. I think for me, it's I would call it the war bike scenario. Every unit is new. Throw out your old ideas. If you have it, put it on the table and play with it and see what it feels like. Right now, that's going to be more important than getting reps with one particular unit. Like, get your variety out there, experiment in the stuff that you enjoy, and see what you can make out of it.
Not the runt herd. Not the runt herd.
Except for the runt herd.
Oh, now I'm going to do it. The one thing I want to make work now is Gazzy. Someday I'm going to make him work.
You know, Gazzy lets the gargantuan squiggoth advance in charge.
It does. I don't want to buy a gargantuan squiggoth.
I've spent too much on Gaz. I'll augment it with a giant squiggoth.
That's like over 50% of the army. Those two models.
No, I've played him a few times on the tabletop simulator, and just deep striking him in, so that he shows up on turn 3, really makes it hard for your opponent to have a good answer for him. But my observation of that was a unit of, I guess at this point, 8 Meganobs would do the same thing.
Yeah.
So why does he get one of my character slots?
But now that he can advance in charge,
much better.
He's so much faster. Much faster.
Yeah. I think if there is a Gaz list that involves the horde of boys, because now he can just go up with it and keep up with it and be able to slam home when they slam home.
Because he is a massive buff.
Yeah.
Oh, brings a lot.
He does.
Well, and who's going to go take him off an objective? I mean,
yeah.
You're just going, crap.
I don't think there's anything in the game that wants to fight him in close combat.
No.
That's a great place to be at.
That series going on the community page were like, can Gazzy kill this? The answer was like, yes, Gazzy can kill that.
Gazzy can kill this contest about whether Gaz can kill things. Like that's where he's at. He's risen beyond. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think this would be a treasure trove of things for our orc friends out there. Everybody, please get out there, play some games, and then share back with us all our different platforms and stuff. We all do this because we like to connect with people, and obviously it's a little harder for everybody to connect right now. So please hook us up with your questions, and we're happy to help fledgling lore bosses or experienced lore bosses figure out what they want to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had people Facebook me and say, "Is it okay if I just chat you up about orcs?" I'm all, sure, absolutely. I love talking about orcs. So yeah, it's
I spend a lot of my day checking my phone, being like, "Oh, nope, nobody's answered. Nobody's asked me a question yet."
Yeah, hit us up. I always enjoy talking about orcs, and in case you didn't notice from our discussions, I like to do a lot of math on what works and what doesn't work. So if you have weird things that involve math, please let me know, and I will do it because I like that.
All right, to give it as a testimony, like I come to you guys when I have questions and what I want to do next, right? So if people are wondering, like this is a great place, good people to check in with. They help me flesh out my ideas, so always appreciated.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah. And thank you guys, and thank you for being here and spending your evening helping me make this. I hope people are going to really enjoy it, so should be good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. Give me a second here.